Thank you very much. I would like to thank the people present here and all the people watching us through streaming, and more particularly my team in SMARTFENSE. This was drawn by my cousin Franco. I would like to thank him for his collaboration. My talk, it's going to be informal. This is some advice I could give you in case it's useful for you. If you want to be entrepreneurs, or you want to work in cybersecurity, or you want to run the cyber ventures, which is what brings me here. We're going to speak about cybersecurity. There's an unfulfilled demand when it comes to professionals. Then we're going to speak about how to be an entrepreneur in cybersecurity. Then we're going to speak about the path I took and modern threats and how that made us create our company, SMARTFENSE. And then I'm going to explain a methodology called MQSP, which can only be found in this talk. I'm a system engineer. I graduated in Argentina. I'm 39 years old, and this is my 5th startup within cybersecurity, so I'm going to focus on that. I'm CEO of my company. I was the CEO of my previous startups. We've received the award of the Company Acceleration Program by INCIBE, which will be awarded in the next edition. So let's talk about the demand and career possibilities for all of you. I could show you statistics which are true, but I think that we need to look at this in practical terms. What happened to me? I'm from Argentina, a small city, San Francisco, near Cordoba, 60,000 inhabitants. And when I came here to take part in this acceleration program, I met many people. I can't even remember the faces. There were hundreds of people. I was so fortunate. It was very useful. But when I went back, no one. I went back to Argentina, then 4 months I came back. Everybody was working somewhere else, even within INCIBE. What happened? There's a lot of movement, a lot of demand, different job positions. I had a nice surprise. The contacts that I had were useful for me in their new position. So what I want to say is, please be reassured. If you're here, you're doing your homework. You've chosen a career with a big demand. I think I'm too short, so I'm never going to cover the slides. This is my how-to, the one I used. It wasn't written before I did it. This is my experience, so that you can use it. But more particularly, it's like any book you read, you took something that's useful, and if it's not useful, I don't use it, because this is my path. It doesn't mean it has to be yours. So I studied, I worked, I looked for a problem, I checked that it existed. And once a problem exists, you look for competitors, and you look for partners, and then you start. So this how-to is ordered to create the startup. So if we speak about studying, I'm studying at National Technological University. It's a specific university for engineering studies. So by means of a university degree, which is my first message, I would advise you to study to get a university degree. I graduated when I was 23, quite early, and I compare the definition of creativity and engineering. On the top side, you're going to see creativity, and below, engineering. The first thing in creativity is creation, and engineering is invention. Then, creativity is new and dynamic element, and engineering speaks about innovation. Then creativity, problem solving, and engineering more or less the same thing. This comes from Wikipedia. So you see here we say limited resources in both cases, mental potential, and in engineering the same thing, knowledge. And with regards to solutions, right solutions or something practical. What do I mean by this? This is just one characteristics I'm trying to point out, which is characteristics, but in the definition of engineering, you see there's so much. That's what we engineers do. We solve problems in a creative way. This is how you study a degree and you get a bias towards the abilities you need for being an entrepreneur. This is my fifth startup. The fourth one was Aula 25. I'm not in those projects anymore, but they're still ongoing. I get bored, I create the company, I develop it, and when it gets stable, I get bored and I leave. I acknowledge this is my character, it's a virtue and also a negative aspect. This Aula 25 develops specific courses for technical profiles. What I want to show you with all this is that why we created this, because in Latin America we didn't have the same course offering as in Spain, so I would like to invite you to take a look at this. So let's move on to our next steps. We've studied, we have the basis, but you never stop studying, you never stop reading, attending conferences. That should never end. But let's go to the next step, which is working. I'm going to stop here for a while. You need to be flexible. You don't need to work in cybersecurity in a specific position about what you studied. You're so specific about something, and right from the beginning you studied something very particular, because perhaps you may work for something which has nothing to do with cybersecurity, but it's a better environment in order to be an entrepreneur in cybersecurity. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you need to detect many things. You need to be curious. So if you work in something very particular, if a company says that you're very good at something, they're going to require you to be better at that. You're going to have more expertise, but in just one field. So you're not going to have a general view. So it's okay to work in a position which is not necessarily a specialist in cybersecurity, because you need to look for problems. And in order to be able to look for problems, you need to work. So you don't need to work for a very specific company in the cybersecurity world. When it comes to looking for a problem, I want to change this, because I wasn't looking for a problem. I was in the right environment in order to identify problems. If I ask you if you consider yourself curious, please raise your hand. If you think you're curious, raise one hand. If you consider you're very curious, raise both hands. Well, curious could be about food. I came from Argentina with Nicolas. We've tried everything. What was it? The salmorejo version? Here, well, we've forgotten the name. That's what's left for us to try. You're not curious in just one field, you're curious about everything. And in this particular case, when it comes to identifying the problem, as long as you have a contacts from everywhere, it will be more likely that you find problems from different nature. The more places you've worked at, the more possibilities you have to identify problems to be solved. There are problems everywhere. If you say that everything has been discovered, well, that means you're not in the mood to you're not in the mood for looking for problems. Then you need to validate that it exists. That's the big problem engineers face. As an engineer, I would like to ask you, who has studied or is going to study a degree related to IT or engineering? So you graduated. What is the big problem of loving a problem? Sometimes the problem has been invented. It's invented because we have the solution we like. There's something we've developed or we want to develop, and then we invent a problem that's going to be solved with the thing. So we invest a lot of time to solve a problem which we don't know if it exists or no. So we need to validate that problem exists. It might sound silly, but it happens very frequently. I'm going to recommend a tool that was useful for us. This was my 5th startup. So what happened? The first stages, I was blindfolded. I wanted to be an entrepreneur because my parents did it, my grandparents did it. I just changed field. They worked in wood, I work in cybersecurity. The positive thing I had, and I didn't realize it back then, it was I never had money. I started from scratch because every startup I created, I did it with very little money. The first time I did it by myself, the second I had found books on entrepreneurship. Now there are accelerators, incubators, everything. I've just finished an accelerating problem to several years ago. I was an incubator, but in the past there was nothing, no one helped you. So the complicated thing was knowing whether the thing you were solving was solved in the right way. How could we know? By trying. Cristina from Continuum says, we have a methodology called Lean Startup. Have you heard about it, Lean Startup? If you're going to be entrepreneurs, I recommend this as a methodology, just that. Why? It's useful so that we don't do anything that entails spending a lot of money or a lot of time without solving a problem. I did that in the 5th problem. In the previous startups, I was doing that partially. What's the origin of this methodology? You have to bear in mind that in the US, very often there was an idea, and immediately there was money behind it to help that entrepreneur in order to develop that idea. But very often they paid money, they funded a problem that did not exist. So in Lean Startup, we're going to find a methodology which is useful to invest as less as possible until we move forward and up to a certain degree. First of all, you need a hypothesis. You have the hypothesis that a specific problem exists. Then we need the minimum viable product. It was a software. In our case, our MVP was just sheets of paper, and there we explained what we were going to do. And the funny thing is that we were going to find investors with a sheet of paper. And we saw that sometimes you're under a lot of pressure, and that's what you want to avoid with a startup. We wanted to look for investors, and we realized that people were interested in us, but they had no money. We had just a sheet of paper, but they had nothing. So very often you need to take things with calm. The software was like this, you could see it, but there were many parts of it where you touched and nothing happened, or it was a failure. Software quality. What's the point in having a good quality software if it doesn't solve any problem? That's the goal of Lean Startup. Once we validate the problem exists, we need to look for competitors. I'm going to ask you, who is working with a specific product or a specific company? Is someone an entrepreneur or trying to be? Of course, you don't have competitors because you are not entrepreneurs. The problem I had in each of these startups is that I fell in love with my product. So when I looked somewhere else, I was looking this way because I didn't want to see competitors. I had identified a problem. My solution solved it, but I didn't want to know whether there was another one that solved it. So I was the right person to identify a competitor. Other people were telling me you have competitors here, there, but they didn't know. They didn't know because they were not in my field, and I was the only one who could say it, and I didn't want to see that. In every startup, there were many more competitors, and I identified them at a later stage. And very often, we want to protect our idea so much that we don't go elsewhere to look for things. You have to change your mindset. But it has to do with what I said at the beginning, being curious. You need to go out there and look for competitors. Having competitors is a good thing. You may be afraid, but a competitor offers the possibility of copying him or her. And then the certainty that if there's someone that's a competitor, that means our problem exists. So that validates our problem. I'm not the only one that thinks that problem exists. I'm reading 2 books at the same time about blue ocean strategies, which is about looking for something that doesn't exist. I'm not saying you not to do that, but very often looking for something disruptive, it means that sometimes you're looking for a problem which does not even exist. The other big challenge I had was looking for partners, and I would like to give you a recommendation. Please don't think of yourself as a big startup. I changed partners in every startup, and I don't have any bad relationship with any of the previous ones. Some of them were the same ones. What I'm trying to say is that throughout your life, you're going to find different partners that will be useful for different times. So please don't get crazy about finding the right partner for each case. Having said that, which has to do with being an entrepreneur, let's move on to specific characteristics of SMARTFENSE. We have 3 ways of achieving the same result. In this case, was the question asked by some people, not necessarily within cybersecurity. I want to hack someone's Facebook account before being discovered. All my cousins asked me about this. They want to do something like this. In most of those sites, they're going to hack one account which is going to be yours. The first thing you're going to ask, to request, is information about your account. But that's level 1. I want to hack, and I hack 127.001. Number 2, I reach this level, which is I consider myself a hacker, not a cyber criminal. I consider myself a hacker, but instead what I was doing, just looking for software in order to hack, and I used them without knowing what it did, and I thought I was hacking someone else and I was being hacked. This made me think that this was too easy, without having knowledge. I realized that I could achieve a result, hack, and achieving a result with a tool which was something very simple, and it exists again. You could try this if you want. It's easy to do.
And the third level that I didn't get to is to devote specific time enough to generate vulnerabilities or to develop relevant tools, or you can also use others to achieve your objective. So here we are talking about level of a cyber criminal who wants to develop a tool to make a profit, and then there will also be gatekeepers, intermediaries, also used for that phishing attack. So these are the attacks that we detected. That is to say, those people that with little knowledge could do little or nothing, and those with medium level of knowledge could carry out or launch like medium-sized, so to speak, or medium-scale attacks, and then those with good knowledge that they could really launch highly severe attacks. So what we have seen here also is that the security officers were receiving very many attacks. Anything that was not protected through firewalls or through anything, the attack went just right away into the organization, just through sending it an email with an attached file. And then also attack was committed through asking or requesting a person to send in information sometimes about the actual account. So that was our hypothesis. So we went out there to validate it. What did we do? Well, we just went out to ask people whether they were facing that problem, whether information officers were being attacked through the users, and they said yes, we are receiving these targeted attacks. We also wanted to find out whether they were interested in solving that problem, whether they wanted to do something about that, or they just wanted to find a magical solution through technology to prevent users from falling into those traps. So we find a bit of everything. Those wanted to solve problems with technology, others without technology, and others said, well, perhaps it is a good idea to make an investment and to raise awareness. So that was our hypothesis, and its validation. And we took it from there and we started to develop a product. The product in the beginning didn't hold because, well, we wanted to prove and to show that the product was user-friendly and that it could eventually resolve the problem. So as I said, that time we hit a very hard wall. So the methodology startup is aimed at learning. And then we asked many people, and all of them said we had a problem and our solution was the best solution for the problem. I said, wonderful. We developed the platform, and in the beginning, well, we just tried to sell it. But again, we found the same problem. We offered them a solution, they believed that it worked, we offered that solution to them, and they didn't buy it. So that was very hard, because the lean startup methodology is aimed at learning, but not at selling. So we started to have a hard time because we were losing or having less and less money. So, as I say, our money was going down and down, and that's where the key question came into play. That is to say, our team, our partners. So we just put through the difficult times together, and what happened? Then there was a second group of people that when we showed the platform to them, didn't show so much excitement. And as I say, this second group of people were more skeptical in the beginning when we presented them with the tool, with the platform, and in the end they bought it from us. So Lean Startup, it helps you learn, validate the product, and to check that the product actually solves the problem. And that was a very, very important learning. If you listen to the audiobooks, you will also hear that this methodology is aimed at learning, not at selling. And now we have a platform which works very well all throughout, and thanks to these early adopters, that is to say, those clients that actually believe that our platform solves problem. Perhaps they are not the best clients, perhaps they are not the best buyers, but they were the early adopters. So therefore, that's where the value lies. And now I move on to the last part of my presentation, which is about MQSP methodology to be successful. I'm very proud of it because I invented it myself, and then, being successful is a relative thing. It's not either being fully successful or fully unsuccessful. And what I'm going to tell you, just keep whatever is of interest to you, okay? So we won the Business Acceleration Program of INCIBE. So we were not aware of what it actually meant. Had we known that, we traveled all the way from Argentina to here. Had we known it, we would not have came all the way to here. And when I first saw it, I said, well, this is precisely what we need. Well, in Argentina, we were already selling. We had sold our product to 3 or 4 clients, and then we found this business acceleration program. And one of the first challenges was about an awareness raising platform. So we were very much in debt at that time. We had no money, but we knew that we had to go for it. We started or joined a program, or we filled out all the forms, and they said, well, if you don't like it, we can always go back. And before we came to Spain, we knew that we had to set up a company in Spain. We were in Argentina. We only had 3 or 4 clients. In Argentina, we had to set up a company to take part in the program, a company here in Spain. And I convinced everyone around me, but no one knew that I was not 100% convinced. When everyone agreed, was into it, I told them, I confessed that I was not fully convinced. And we had to buy a plane ticket and everything else that we needed, and then Savior clients came in, and then he gave us a 3-year project. So clients with 3,500 users, and we entered into a 3-year project. So that meant all the money that we needed to come all the way to Spain. This program, when I came here, I thought that I was here to learn, but I didn't know that it was a competition, a really hard competition lasting for 5 months. It was very difficult in many aspects that I will not refer to here, but at the same time, that gave me the opportunity to see snow for the first time. and I was having a very good time. And I used to send out these photographs to my friends and also to relatives, and they were, well, they found it interesting because they say, well, you are working really hard, but you are also having a really good time. And I say, yes, and why not? Why not having the best of both? So with this, I mean that being an entrepreneur should sometimes be taken not that seriously. So all throughout this time, I set up 5 companies. So now we are at this point in time looking for investors, and big things have happened to us. We will continue to go through big things, but we should not be pessimistic. You should not be negative. So we also had a hard time, but because we were naive enough that this is what made us move forward. And imagine, well, here we have 2 profiles. We have skeptical person, and the second person is that person who turns it down right away, who said no right away. The first profile, a skeptical person, would look at you and would somehow will not believe anything that you would tell him. And sometimes you also have to understand that the skeptical people are not being skeptical because they have something against you, but perhaps they are because they are just not encouraged to go for your project. So we shouldn't take that as something fully negative, but it is just that many people do not want to be entrepreneurs. And also, I recommend you to ignore. Well, when someone tells me no, to me that fuels me. That actually tells me that yes, I can do it. I find motivation to do it. And now these circles point at what made us be where we are. So there are 3 circles. I made this 100%. Okay, what are we good at? I was the blue circle. What are we good at? Then what I was passionate about, and then what was far away. So at university, I found something that I felt passionate for. That was open source software. Because I was passionate about it, I devoted time to it, effort to it. There was no money involved. Open source software. Then there came a time that I decided, well, to try it out how life is when you have some money. I bought a car. Say here that I did not pay for my car. My father bought it for me. And as I say, I was just doing whatever was suitable to me, but I was not doing what I was passionate about, and I was not doing what I was good at. So these circles continue to change the size, and now the circle of what I was good at was growing and growing. And then what was convenient to me, and then what I was passionate about. So the more you know yourself, the more you know what you are good at. Then I went back to that point. And then these 3 different aspects of myself were getting closer and closer to each other. There came a point where I was doing what I was good at. I was also passionate about it. Well, in the beginning, when you set up a company, the other people in the company earn more money than yourself. But as I say, I was working what I was passionate about, Linux, etc. And there was a good mix there. As I moved on in entrepreneurship, you really want to find this full convergence. Well, sometimes I move into one of the circles, sometimes I move out of the circle, then I come back in it. Well, I told you that in the beginning we had no money, then accounting went well. Then, as I say, we came over here to Spain. Company had to pay for those expenses. So we spent 5 months here in Spain. We had to pay for those expenses. So you may be at good points in your life, but then out of a sudden something may happen and that make you going down. So my personal recommendation, try to be aware of what you are good at, also find out what you are passionate about, but never overlook what is convenient to you, what is suitable to you. And then the good thing is like having the mix of them three. Well, someone tells me that I come from the future and I'm here to tell you what will happen in the future. Actually, this is about the way I am planning my future ahead. So I do a projection in time, often 5 years, and where do I shorten that? Shorten that where I'm having lots of trouble. When you have lots of trouble, present time, you cannot really project in the long term. So therefore, my projection doesn't go further than 5 years. Or sometimes, as I say, my projections are shorter in time than that. So we have a time projection, and then I have myself, and then the skills to be developed and implemented. I am here, and this is where I want to get at. I'm halfway through with my last companies. For each of companies that I created, I set out myself different objectives. In the beginning, I just wanted to work. Then I just wanted to learn. Then I wanted to become the best in my town. Small town, by the way. Then my objective was achieving a specific goal, and then also getting to know something that could be a country, for instance, then creating something. But when you create a company, you are always creating something, the actual company. The previous companies that I created were service companies. But in the last case, in the last instance, I created a product company. So that was a difficult change. And then the other objective was to create contacts. And my last objective is just to create a company that would allow me not to work anymore. So my objective is, my latest objective is that one. So higher up we have the actions and the skills that you need. And you cross that out with real life. You start really strong, and then you may have, you may be disappointed, or something may go wrong with your family, with your partners. So what is actually important is to keep going, to keep walking to your objective. So I have different ways to face any type of, things going wrong. Shall I see it as a failure? Shall I see it as a success? Well, this is relative. I wanted to achieve something and I didn't get it 100%. Well, sometimes you can really tell that you have not achieved your goal by 100%, but this is not the case in companies. Even if you fail, well, you could read it as, well, I haven't achieved it by 100%, but I have achieved something. So these are my 5 companies. These are my 5 cybersecurity undertakings. And notice, when you take a look at that, we see the goals, here, strategy, execution, and I'm always below that. I'm always below the strategy and the goals. But I learn little by little and I get closer and closer to my understanding of success, or to what success means to me. And now, my specific piece of advice. Well, we are talking about scores here. We are talking about minor differences. This is like F1 race or like horse racing. The difference between the first and the second and the third are just minimum. So out of 5, we got 387. The second one was 385. So we have made a huge effort and we became second. We finished second. When we came over here, we thought that we were here just to learn, but then we entered into the competition. We worked really, really hard. And our platform is an awareness raising platform. It is not fully, doesn't offer full innovation, so to speak, but what actually helped us to become second was our hard work. I developed all type of things, and allergy, everything. I'm not going to tell you everything that happened to me in that all that hard work that we did. We worked, we gave it all. Second, flexibility and adapting. Well, I come from Latin America, where everything is very casual, very informal, and now I came to Spain and they said, no, you are not, well, second world. Well, we have Spain, Italy, Greece, Portugal, Argentina. Well, different from what happens here in Europe. So I had to adapt to some things here, things that were not expecting. As I said, well, I could see that things were not as expected or as perfect as I expected. But the fact that I was not in Finland, that I was in Spain, that was not a huge problem because I had a capacity to adapt because we come from Argentina. And then patience and perseverance. I am quite an anxious person. I always feel that things will happen at a given time point, and then they do not happen, And then, well, if I'm surrounded by anxious people, there comes a time that we all lose our patience and we all go mad. When I won the competition for business acceleration, I got like so excited that I burst into crying. I couldn't hold my excitement, holding in and waiting for things to happen. They may happen later than you expect them to happen, and then delaying that instant rewarding that we'll need. So perhaps big things will happen by the time we will stop to look for instant reward. So sometimes achieving a short-term objective, an immediate objective, goes against achieving a long-term objective. So it is like if you, same as a child, you are given, well, you can offer 2 things to a child to say, well, either you get this marshmallow now or you wait for some time. and you will get 2 marshmallows. So there are research studies carried about that. Okay, so it is good to learn how to wait. And now this emotional roller coaster. So we all have ups and downs. So it's very good to work in a team so that you kind of compensate each other. When someone is up, someone else may be down. So my definition of success is this. It's a mix of hard work and of dreaming big. So, but do not stick to one of the 2 questions only. So working hard, positive attitude. So this is also hard work, always hard work. Does that mean success? No, not really. Work hard does not equal success always. And then sometimes entrepreneurs are afraid and think about things that will never be translated into reality. So therefore we have to dream big. So this exit or this success is the effect or the consequence of an action or of an undertaking. So this is what will lead us to making the right decisions and of being successful. So because I come from a small town, well, I would like to recommend you to recommend local elements, local problems, small things first. Do not hesitate to do that. Everything that you will learn, everything small that you will do, will help you to be big in the long term. Do not self-limit yourself. Do not be limited to the world of fully to the world of technology today. So now, focus, which is a great challenge for millennials. I was about to be late to this presentation because I entertained myself playing arcade. So the thing is that we have very many distractions around us. So even in entrepreneurship, here we have a image about coding. When we don't want to face reality, what do? We just hide ourselves behind a computer and we just don't want to interact with anyone. Sometimes when you lose focus, you end up distracting yourself and not focusing on what you have to do. Well, if your company requires you to go up there and sell your products, even if you don't like it, you should do it. That's my advice. That's my piece of advice. Focus, do not get too serious, do not go crazy, but just be in the, well, somewhere in between, okay? Middle way. Often, success is associated to 2 things. Isolated person or something isolated. The person is either successful or not. No, sometimes it's yes and no. Well, you may think that because I'm here giving this presentation, I am successful. I'm not successful, but I'm not a failure either. Well, and that's the reason why I gave, the title to this presentation, because I just want you to come over here. If I say that I'm a failure, you will not come over here. But we should try to break down with that stereotype. Sometimes we shouldn't think that the actual success belongs to only one person, the person who appears as the leader of the team, but surely this person has been helped out and surrounded by very many other people that also own part of the success. So some people become successful, but the way they harm very many people, that shouldn't be like that. but not aiming at achieving an objective without being detrimental to others or harming others. And this is what I learned from my ancestors. When my grandfather died, I could see that many people went to his burial, and then I wonder, how did he manage to be so much loved? He was a carpenter. He had been a very good people all his life. When he left this world, many people went to his burial. And then I learned from that, and I say, well, I want to become like him. And this is the objective I'm aiming at. This is my goal. And I'm taking this from these two celebrities. Arnold Schwarzenegger, I recommend you listen to some of his inspirational talks, and also follow or listen to what Jim Carrey said. Well, the most important value that you may have is the impact that you may have in other people. So what happens if, well, I can also help other people to make enough money just to stop working, which is my objective. And what happens if I not only improve my life, but I also improve the life of people I work with, my clients, my vendors? Why not doing all that? Why not doing good to myself and also to the others? So it's about achieving and being successful and also helping out the others. So this methodology comes from an old expression that we use in Argentina. So this means like, go for it, do it, dare to do it, do not hesitate. So what I like the most from the acceleration program and what we learned from mentors and others were just having the opportunity to meet other entrepreneurs, because other entrepreneurs told me, don't you hesitate to produce a product, even if it is not fully perfect. They gave us recommendations as to how to deal with investors, how to interact with clients. Go for it. So make the best of the time you are in, take fast action, and go for the next Security Venture Business Acceleration Program offered by INCIBE. Thank you very much for your attention.